And yeah, so Rich, it's up to you, whatever you would like to do.
Great. Well, thanks. I want to say, first, I want to just say hello to y'all. Scott and Shariel and Pram and Zayad. Welcome to the course today. We have a nice small group and we can talk back and forth.
Yeah.
So I'm an AI researcher, a prominent AI researcher for Edmonton. And I've been doing this all my life. It's like 45 years I've been researching this topic. And so I've been around a few things and explored each issue from various sides. And, you know, it's exciting to be in AI now. I know through the rest of the course, you've been encountering some of the modern activities and the progress that's been made. And it does really feel significant. I mean, there's always been a prediction that we'd have the computer power available to do AI by 2030, actually. And I always thought that, yeah, maybe within 10 years after we have the computer power, we might actually figure out how to do it. So maybe by 2040 it would be done, or it could even happen by 2030. And all of that is, you know, effectively now, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's now. It's going to happen in your lives. It's probably even happened in my life. And so it's happening. It will change everything. I want to talk about how it will change things. And so another thing we should note is that it's old. It's an old question. Like, how does the mind work? What is intelligence? What are we? You know, philosophers for thousands of years, like even like Socrates, you know, and Aristotle and all those guys talked about, you know, the mind, and Hume and Locke and all these series of philosophers. All the great philosophers have talked about understanding reason and knowledge. And so these are great philosophical questions. And now we go more recently, like scientists in psychology and neuroscience, they've also, you know, been trying to understand how we think. And I think it's just something that we can all relate to just personally. You know, we'd like to understand ourselves. We'd like to know how we work. I'd like to know what we are in the world. So this is a grand question. And I think we're going to be significantly understanding it in the next decades. I think that's not an extreme point of view anymore. It's just normal. We can expect that within our lifetimes, AI researchers, other scientists will come to understand the principles of our intelligence well enough, you know, how it works and what it is, and how it works well enough to create beings of equal or even greater intelligence. This will change everything, changes the way we work, changes the way we play, changes what we think of as ourselves. We'll probably be augmenting ourselves. And it just intellectually, as an intellectual achievement, I think it will stand out, you know, maybe as the greatest intellectual achievement of all time. You know, I would compare it to like Darwin's discovering of evolution and basic fundamental things like that. And maybe, so it's a goal. It's really a goal that's beyond human history. You know, when there are beings on the planet that understand how they work and can make more beings that can control and predict the universe, what they do, and act on it. This will be just an event in our corner of the universe, and that's a big deal. And you know, I'm excited about it because I'm hoping to be involved in it. You know, I call it the prize. It's this great scientific prize that's available in the next few decades, and I think it's a great and glorious goal. And if we're going to be ambitious AI researchers, we should reach for it. Okay, well, that's where I am. I'm an AI researcher. You guys are young people still deciding what your role is going to be, but you are interested, I think, in understanding the developments that are going to be happening, as well as understanding yourselves. And so we share this interest, this ambition of understanding what's happening and who we are. Okay, so now I'd like to bring up this quote by Richard Feynman. And he said, I guess I can show this. Let me just show you this because it's kind of amusing. Here's desktop 2. I think you can see that. And that's a little snippet of Richard Feynman's whiteboard. And he says, "What I cannot create, I do not understand." So this is really a call for creating things and not just studying like physics. So creating things is exactly what AI is about. We're going to create intelligence in order to better understand it. But now, it's kind of amusing, the story of Richard Feynman and saying this. He actually didn't say it. He wrote it on the blackboard, and then it was there when he passed away. And this is actually a photograph of his blackboard that they took after he had died. And he had just a few things written there, and I've cut out what he said. So this is I think we all know this, that creation is a deeper kind of understanding. It really shows we understand it, and that's what AI is about. And we also see that today we're starting to create artificial intelligences. Okay. Now, when I say let's change everything, let's break that down a little bit. The basic thing is that nowadays there's just what kind of intelligences are there now? They're people, and they're organizations of people, and all the rest is just dumb matter. Whereas in the next few decades, we could expect there to be many different kinds of intelligent agents. Some of them will be tools, and some of them will be slaves. Some will be copies of people, or you will be able to make many copies of an intelligent agent. Once we have it as a program, we could back it up. You can also have different kinds of intelligence. For example, you can have collectives of individuals that live separate interactions with their world, but then are tightly integrated and can be thought of as one. So I think, whereas now there's one body and one mind. Once we can understand the principles of intelligence, we could have many bodies and a degree of coalescence, a degree of a joint mind. What other kind of things might happen? We could have, now there's a big thing in crypto communities called a distributed autonomous organization, where you have an organization that lives in the network and integrates and combines the activities of people, and that could develop further so that there's more computation going on the network or in the basis of the organization. And so one way that could develop is that an agent would live on the internet and would be intelligent and would obtain an independent existence. Maybe it would earn an income. It could live forever independently of people. And so now let's think, if we really have AI, we could have free artificial agents. Let's call them arty folk. they could be free, or they could be semi-free. Maybe they'd be controlled by an owner, or partially controlled by an owner. Maybe they would be an assistant to an owner. Maybe they would be totally free, right? Why can't, if you understand mind, why can't you make mind that would be essentially independent people? Okay, and so of course you also have, as we do now, we could have free people and we can have semi-free people, and they can be augmented. Even today, we're augmented by our phones and by our, just things like our eyeglasses or a pencil that enables us to think better because we can write things down and read them again. And but there's every expectation that if we understood how our brains work, we can augment them, we can add additional memory to them, we can interface more deeply with, obviously with the internet. But I think the real interest would be augmentation. So you could add memory, add processing power, add reasoning ability to you as an individual. All these things I think will happen, and these will cause many changes. I mean, they are changes just by themselves. So how do we think about this? It's really hard to think about the future. As you know, there's the name singularity, and the singularity is really a reference to the difficulty of seeing past it. Like the singularity in physics is the event horizon of a black hole, by which you, by definition, cannot see beyond. And that is the original definition of the singularity, as something you can't see beyond. Like science fiction authors were really interested in trying to predict what it was going to be like in the future. And the singularity was a recognition of their inability to see beyond, much beyond the achievement of artificial intelligence, of understanding how our minds work. So so that I don't have to talk all the time, maybe y'all can tell me how much you've invested in this, trying to imagine a future where we have more widespread and capable artificial intelligences. Have you guys thought about it much yet?
Wait, I'm gonna go. I think I've thought about it, obviously, and I think all of us have to some degree, but when I envision it, I usually like to think about things that are more automated, that make our lives easier. So I don't really envision like the whole robots taking over kind of thing. I don't really see that personally being a reality very soon, but like automated cars, automated parking, automated bank transfers, automated food preparation, like things like that. That's where I sort of see practical applications of artificial intelligence that are still within our grasp and our reach, so that we have this sense of like control. Because I think part of the danger, and that is most often talked about, is like how fast AI will advance to the point where humans can no longer control it. So automated functions that are still like at our fingertips, that have parameters that we can adjust. I think that's where I see like really good and achievable applications of AI, I would say within the next 10 years. But then the looking past that, I haven't really spent too much time conceptualizing.
Thank you, Zayad. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think with the recent developments of, I guess, large language models and it's all over the news right now. And I'm also a computer science major and have worked in the industry, and I've used tools like Copilot at work, and they've just gotten phenomenal, right? But with all this recent news, kind of I've been kind of like having to think about like what is kind of like what would the field of software engineering look like in the future? Because I mean, quite frankly, like the idea of me never having to code again, like it's a little frightening. And you know, having used Copilot and such great tools for helping developers, like, you know, I've kind of seen like the first steps towards this reality. So yeah, it's something I think about, and I guess specifically, I always kind of wonder like what will, you know, what will software engineering look like? And I've talked to many of my mentors and managers, and some people really do think, you know, we won't have to be coding as much or even at all. And a lot of people think that um, you know, these tools will, you know, software engineers will still be around, but the work may look very different, right? Like it might look just configuring, you know, knobs and stuff instead of really writing systems from the ground up. So yeah, that's, I guess, to answer your question, that's kind of something I've been thinking about a lot lately.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, I think especially since I've, been in this course specifically, one of the things I find myself thinking a lot is, am I wasting my time in university? Because, and this is why I really like the definition that you gave of the singularity, it being just unknown. If AI is going to explode and become so capable that it can outperform humans, what am I doing here? Right? If it comes in my lifetime, nobody's going to want me to do, dentistry or be a doctor or whatever, when there's a machine that can do it 10 times or 100 times better. So that's something that I, find myself thinking about, is what is the future of the workforce going to be, and are humans even going to need to work or be allowed to work? Just, yeah.
Thanks, Shahil. Rob?
Yeah, so building upon what something Ziad said was kind of automation and how we can apply that to fields like medicine. I think within the next 5 to 10 years that we do need to like shift our focus to that. I think the education system doesn't really touch on it or explore how that integration will happen. So that's why I kind of think courses like this, or kind of discussion circles like this, is really important. Just because, again, like Scott said, there's like a lot of kind of fear about what the future of jobs will look like. And then I also kind of want to circle back to, I guess, with, for example, Dr. Solez's job with being a pathologist. There's so much opportunity for AI to really improve health outcomes through that path, but it's just going back to, will pathologists be ready to embrace that? And is that kind of slowing down our progress? So yeah, that's kind of what I've been thinking about throughout this course.
Very good. Thank you all for your thoughts. So like there's a spectrum of things. There's how the things that Ziad focused on, how intelligence in our environment can help us achieve the things we want to achieve. And then there's the, when their capabilities really approach ours and exceed ours in some areas, we're concerned about that, and I am an optimist in this area. I am less concerned about that, and partly it's, I know, maybe it'll become a better programmer than me in some regards, but there are already many better programmers than me, lots of people are better than me at almost everything that I try to do. And I don't see it as a bad thing. You know, it's a good thing that there are better people that are better at various things, chemistry or public relations or programming or many topics. It's actually good for me that there are people that have capabilities. And so I'm thinking, and we all have to find a place where we can help. But just because there are individuals or agents, intelligent agents that can do certain things better than us, than I, that is not something we should fear at all. That's just that can be a good thing. Absolutely be a good thing. Just as it's good for there to be other skilled people in the world. I mean, in fact, it's not only good, it's the only reason our civilization can exist is because we have different people specialized in different things, and then we exchange and we trade off what we're going to do. We each do different things. And this is the basis for our society. So, I mean, I think our first feeling is it should be good that there are powerful, intelligent beings other than ourselves, as there are. Okay, now they'll just be different and they'll be more diverse and they'll be powerful in some ways. So, you know, this is well known in economics. Economics, they have this notion of, what's it called? The idea that even if there's another, there's two agents, even if one of them is better at everything than the second agent, they both have a role. Like the existence of the second agent can enable the first agent to specialize and do less of the thing that it's still better than the second agent, but it can do less of it and let the second agent do it, and the whole economy is improved. This is a differential advantage. That's what it's called. This is a well-known thing. And so, you know, yeah, even if there's another system that's better than you at everything that you do, you can still contribute by allowing them to focus on what they can do their best. Yeah, so I'm an optimist about that. And I do want us to think about that. I do want us to think about this going beyond the kind of things that Sayad mentioned, but going to the limit. What if we have a wide variety of diverse agents with different goals and different abilities? What kind of a world will it be? Okay, and it's hard to do that. But one way, let's try this way of proceeding. You know, what will not change? What will remain the same? Okay, so I think what will remain the same is that there'll still be scarcity. There'll be scarcity of goods and services, you know, abilities to do various things. There'll still be scarcity, and we'll still have to work and trade off various things. And there will still be, as there are now, diverse agents with diverse goals. And right now, of all these people, sometimes we kind of think very loosely that, oh, we all have the same goal, but we really don't at all. Like, you know, I'm trying to help my family and I'm trying to get food for myself, right? And food, you have to get food for yourself. Those are not the same goals. Those are different goals. They're kind of symmetrical, but they're not the same. So really, we are a society of diverse agents, diverse abilities, and diverse goals. And we nevertheless have found a way to work together extremely well. And so this is the thing that is also not going to change. It's still going to be that the way to have a successful society is through cooperation, through specialization, through exchange, and through peace. You know, people living together peacefully, not forcing each other to do things, but negotiating and exchanging and cooperating. That I think will remain the way to have a good society. That one. And then, you know, the other half is that just as it is today, you know, things are not perfect. But think about peace. Peace is so much more desirable than violence and war. It's just really irrational to have a society where there's all those kinds of conflict and coercion. It's a good rational solution to be peaceful and to let others be, and to find the way that everyone can contribute to the society and to their own welfare. Okay, so I think peace will be the way to win. Cooperation will be the way to win. But just as it is now, it's not perfect, right? We still have coercion, we still have violence, we still have fraud and manipulation and war. These I think will remain problems. Okay. So I don't know, it's kind of the familiar problems of all these things. Not so much here in Canada, but we know they happen in the world, and we still do have all kinds of violence that still goes on in the world. We'll have to. They are, I think, losing strategies, but they will still be there, and people will try to use them to their advantage. Okay, what else will be the same? Well, technology will continue to develop. We'll continue to find new ways to do things more efficiently. Computation will continue getting more plentiful, and it will play more important roles in our society. I think things like encryption to preserve our privacy and our identities and our sort of like mental identity, mental integrity, and to control access to resources. Encryption will become much more powerful. Encryption is a computational thing, like intelligence itself. So there's a broad sense in which, the game is still the same. You have to win by developing your skills. I think it is could be useful to go to school, go to university, or at least to learn stuff, and at least to take courses like this to open your mind a little bit, to help you think about what's happening. Things will change. Maybe instead of the university, we'll have more things done online. I don't think that would be terrible. Like another thing that stays the same is this ongoing struggle in the world today between centralization and decentralization. Like highly centralized things, maybe aspects of the Chinese government are highly centralized. Maybe aspects of the U.S. government is more like an empire and a very centralized power. And then there's pulls for decentralization, as when Scotland breaks away from Britain, and when the states try to pull power back from the federal government, even when Quebec tries to secede again. This force, I think, is a this struggle, I think, is a canonical one: centralization and decentralization. So yeah, cryptocurrencies, they're about decentralizing many activities that have been held centrally in banks and central banks, and they're powerful in some ways. It's a power is involved. And these things change with more and more role for computation, and when there's more things can be automated. Yeah, so those are my thoughts about what will stay the same. Almost easier to list what was going to stay the same than exactly what will change. It'll always be good to invest in yourself. You want to do it knowing what other people can do and other agents can do. You want to stay nimble. You don't want to say, I'm going to do one thing forever. Well, does this prompt any thoughts in you folks about what you think will change and what you think might stay the same?
I think like kind of this idea may be a little like grandiose and out there, but you know, you kind of mentioned you know, with better computing and better technologies, you know, computers and machines will do certain things a lot better. And I guess this kind of implies that it'll kind of force humans to provide what they would do better at, right? So there always is this kind of relation between computation and the human experience, I guess. So, but you know, you also kind of mentioned that even when we progress in this technological frontier, that like there always will be bad actors, right? And as technology gets better, like, you know, bad actors can use technologies for whatever, you know, they want to do with it. So that kind of like brings up the like in my head, I'm like, okay, well, yeah, technology can make things like a lot better, but then I feel like there's always going to be bad people that will use it to do bad things. And it's like, okay, you could do really amazing things, but there's always going to be people that will be using it to do really bad things. And, you know, like I said, this is a kind of grandiose idea, but it's like, oh, well, it kind of just balances out. You know, you're not really getting anywhere. You know, it's the sum may not necessarily be positive with better technology, right? So yeah, that's kind of what popped into my head while you were listing some of those points.
What
Well, I
I
wanted
feel is
Yeah.
that, like, it has always been true that one person can make an enormous difference. It can't be counted on. There's no like guaranteed way you could be sure of that. But it's happened over and over that despite the fact that there's all this turbulence in the world, one person or a very small group of people can improve things a lot, can change things for everybody in a positive way. And it seems to me there just have been lots of examples that go on and on of that. So that also gives reason for hope and optimism, and for feeling confident of being able to do something in the world that matters, and particularly not following fads, right? Doing something that needs to be done, but nobody else seems to want to do, can be a very good idea, because you may end up doing great things just because you're the only one trying to do that thing. Yeah.
I wanted to give some simple, obvious examples of cases where machines have taken over things that people used to do. And like, you know, arithmetic, calculations. People used to do that. And the original computers actually were people. It was their job was to do computation and take square roots and stuff. And of course, you know, all kinds of administrative functions have been taken over by computer programs. And if you want to go farther back, all sorts of things like agriculture used to be heavily done by people. And now it's done by many fewer people with machines. This is a normal progress. Yeah, thank you both. Any other thoughts on where we're going?
Yeah, just to kind of touch on Dr. Solis's point, like I think I totally agree. I think, you know, if we look back in history, like, you know, I would like to believe that it has been an overall improvement, you know, and going back to kind of the topic that relates, like, you know, like you said, you know, maybe a couple hundred years ago, you know, has been a lot of innovations that have replaced the need for specific human work, but you know, overall it has been improved. And I don't know, maybe it's just some negative thinking because maybe I'm looking at the news too much nowadays, but you know, I think you can have you know, a small group of people that will do amazing things for a lot of people, but at the same time, you could say the same the other way around, right? Like I think a great example of this is like, you know, you were talking about blockchain, and you know, I think you know, the idea of blockchain and cryptocurrencies is super interesting, and like I do think that, you know, done right, you know, it can provide amazing things in the world. But you know, we see something like the FTX incident, right? That, you know, made a lot of people lose money, and you know, that's a very small company with very few bad actors, but you know, being able to have that kind of damage, you know, billions of dollars, it makes you think, right? Like if you get that technology in the wrong hands, like, you know, it can cause a lot of harm as much as it can cause you know, good things.
This prompts another few thoughts for me. So a lot of these historical examples where technology has come and taken jobs, they were dirty jobs or jobs that we didn't really want that much. They were things that really could be automated, and people really didn't so much enjoy doing such simple, menial or grudging or repetitive work. Whereas that's not the only thing we're talking about now. It's not a perfect analogy for what's happening now. And I wanted to bring in just another analogy. The other analogy is maybe I'm a not living in the most advanced country. Maybe I'm living in I don't know, a small country. Maybe I'm living in, I don't know, Bangladesh. Bangladesh is actually a big country, lots of people. Okay, but it's not the most advanced country. And if they open their borders and they open their economy to others, it can be a mixed blessing, right? Because others may be better at things that they want to do, manufacturing maybe, okay? And so maybe that's a better analogy. You know, you're in some community, and if you open it up to outsiders that are more capable than you are, at least in certain things, you will lose some of your employment possibilities. But you gain because they can more efficiently do some things, and you can more efficiently do other things, if only it's more local things and things more specialized to your culture. But that makes it seem, as it should be, like, you know, or more realistically challenging to us when we imagine greater intelligences coming in and taking over some of the intellectual tasks that we might pride ourselves on now. So that leads to the thought or the perspective that it's like the arrival of AI is like the arrival of the other culture. The arrival of the other, particularly if the other is strong, can be a very traumatic effect. I mean, look at, you know, Native Americans when Europeans arrived and almost wiped out the Native Americans. That kind of thing has happened many times. And so when we fear the AI, it's a fear that another culture will come in and wipe us out, become our overlords. Okay, I think that fear of the overlords is the fear that comes with, it's sort of almost genetic in our histories, that we fear the other, particularly the strong other. And so that's real, but you know, the other part is real too. That bring in an other who has different strengths can improve the overall effect, the overall economy, the overall success of the civilization. When you can have a mixture of diverse strengths and then coming together for cooperation and exchange and specialization. Specialization is good. And this other is kind of like the best case. The other, if the other is the AI that we're making, it's the best case. You know, we can make it to be sympathetic to us, and we can make it to be to have the best chance for feeling cooperative rather than feeling like they're dominating and they want to destroy, like the Europeans sort of wanted to dominate and destroy. We don't have to, AI doesn't have to be like that. We are in charge of creating it. Who's we? We're not really in charge. Actually, I have some slides on this. Let me show you a few more slides. Here. Oh, I don't know, that didn't really work. I have to do this. Okay, so yeah, understanding would certainly be a big deal. Understanding intelligence would be a big deal. And we're all ready to doubt that we're accepting that it's possible and maybe it will happen soon. Many doubt that it'll be a good thing. And so we're sort of talking about now, but would it, and then you've seen the standard Moore's law things. But I wanted to get here. Will it be good? So I tried to suggest it will be transformative. You know, but do we want to be transformed? And the point here is that it's going to happen. We don't get to choose. We don't get to choose. Understanding intelligence is too economically valuable for us to really stop it. And that sounds scary, but really that's always the case. And all the great changes in history have been of this form. Like, you know, Darwin's, that was a big scientific change. Darwin's understanding of evolution, Copernicus' understanding of the solar system, or I talk about fish contemplating the changes if they become land animals. You know, they didn't really decide, oh yeah, let's do the land thing, or not. It just sort of happened. It happened. Some fish did it, some fish didn't. It wasn't a choice. And so we don't get to choose on the big thing. You know, the printing press came and literacy changed, and that changes our society. And it wasn't a decision the church to decide, oh, that should be a good thing. The government decided. You know, the internet, social media, maybe those are good, maybe those are bad. They happen. Other big changes: the decline of kings, the rise of democracies, the shift of the world economies from farming to industry, the shift of Alberta's economy from oil to technology. These things happen, and many people are impacted. They cause big changes, but they're not really chosen. They're like forces of history, and maybe that's fine. I mean, if we could choose these things, who are we to make those choices? You know, would it really be good if we could decide, no, these things, these advanced technological advances should happen and those should not? Who would who would you want to make? Would you want anyone be able to make those choices for us all? I don't want others to make them for me. And so I think by symmetry, I don't really want to make them for all others. And that's just the way it is. There are just because things are important doesn't mean we can control them. So understanding intelligence, I think it's inevitable. It's inevitable. And it's going to come just like the rise of democracies came, just like the rise of literacy came. Yeah, so why do we choose to be part of it? I don't say we're going to necessarily embrace it. I guess I'm embracing it because I'm trying to make AI. I'm an AI researcher, but we all don't really normally oppose it. At least it would be foolish, perhaps, to oppose it, because these advances, understanding intelligence, will lead to greater productivity, with less cost, waste, less conflict, and we'll understand ourselves and our place in the universe better. It's different than saying we'll like what we decide, but we'll understand it better, and that's what we do. We are intelligent agents, and our basic function is to understand our world and to deal with it. And so that's sort of good. We can say that selfishly, if we're an early participant, we see it coming, and we see understanding intelligence coming, we can reap more of its benefits. And as an AI researcher, I might aim to reap the glory of discovering something. This bottom line, in my opinion, understanding intelligence, one of the few great goods in the universe. I just think that that's what we're about, and that has so many positive effects. Although, the people who made buggy whips, where it's not suffered, it's not totally uniform, and every individual goal that people have is not going to be satisfied by this. So maybe that's all I had to say. Well, here's a summary. The coming of genuine AI is not something that we choose. It's something that will happen, whether we want it to or not. It's something to foresee, to conform to run with, or to surf, as I sometimes say to Kim. We have to surf this arrival. Exactly where we're going is unknowable. It's a singularity, but it's a grand adventure, and we can be part of it. And I think that's acceptable. This is an acceptable truth, proposed truth or reality of how the world is going to evolve. Okay, well, that's great. We had some great discussion. I don't want to, if anyone wants to interject anymore, maybe Kim wants to say something.
Yeah, I feel that it's always a good thing to strive. I think some of you students may feel, well, the reason I'm not going to strive is I'm not the best. I'm not the most skilled, and therefore there's no reason for me to strive. But there are many, many examples of human beings who have sort of helped the process when they were useful somehow, but they were clearly not the best at that at all. They just happened to be in the right place at the right time, right? To kind of facilitate something that later on others were much better at. So I don't feel you have to have extraordinary self-confidence to strive at all. I think striving is worth doing, even if you think you're not the best at most things. It's still a valid strategy. Yeah.
Very well said. Yeah. Okay, now, Kim, I think I better confirm that this is not a class that's supposed to end after 50 minutes.
No, it's an 80-minute class. So we go to 3:20. Yeah.
Good.
And sometimes if we're quite excited at that point, we go beyond 3:20, but but that's when it's supposed to end. Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
80-minute class period. There are a lot of 80-minute videos out there. It's really interesting that, of course, most people, when they watch a video, just watch the first few minutes. So you get fewer and fewer people the later part of an 80-minute video. But yeah, that's what we're creating here. So.
There's one more thing I'd like to try to do today, and that's to try to get you to adopt or recognize. And maybe Scott, it's a recognition because he's used to doing computers. To recognize the computational mindset. The computational mindset, which is what I adopt very much thinking about AI. So, I mean, what is intelligence? Intelligence is is it a physical thing? Is it a part of certain events in the world, or is it a computational thing? It's a computational thing, or it's an information processing thing. It's not about physics. It's not about objects. It's not even about the world of atoms and people. It's about information flows and computation, processing that information. So in the computational mindset, the only things there are is you and then the rest of the world. Okay, you are interacting with the rest of the world. And yeah, so let me have a slide for this. This is the world. This is the slide I want. It's just a simple slide. This one. This is everything there is. There's an intelligent agent, which is you. You are the intelligent agent. I invite you to think of yourself in that position. You're interacting with the world, the rest of the world, and you're going to send actions to it, and you're going to get sensations from it. And that's the totality. And so your job, what is your job? Your job is to try to understand the interaction that you have, how your actions affect your sensations, and you'll develop some model of the world as the thing that will enable you to better predict what the sensations will be. So what can you do if you're interacting with this world, this box that you send data to and you get data back from it? What can you do? What is there to be done? Well, the only things to be done are to predict what the box will do, what the world will do, what signals it will send you, what inputs you will get from the world as a function of the outputs or actions that you send out to the world. Because it's a computational view of what is happening. There's just data going in and out. So your job is to understand the world, and this word world understand, I know I've used several times today. I want you to just imagine that it can always be translated into prediction and control, or at least the computational mindset says understanding is nothing more than prediction and control. So I understand the world if I can predict it and control it. And by control it, I don't mean, totally control everything that happens. It means I can influence what the world does. So control just means influence. If you can predict and control a system, or to the extent, right? Because it's never absolute. You can predict some things, not other things. You control some things, not other things. But to the extent that you can predict and control a system, that is what you mean by the extent to which you understand the system. Like you might think you understand your computer because you can open it up and you have you have a pretty good idea what it's going to do, and you can control it to do what you want to get done. Or you might say you understand the weather, maybe imperfectly, because you can't always predict what it's going to do, and you certainly can't control it very well. But if we were able to control the weather more, we would say that we have a deeper understanding of it. Or if you say your spouse, your partner, you also could say you understand them, and that means you can predict what they're going to do to some extent and what they're going to like, and maybe you can even influence what they do. And this is what you mean by, I understand that person and their behavior patterns. And so really understanding, and I've been talking about understanding all afternoon here. I've been talking about understanding intelligence. So predicting and controlling a system, and intelligence itself is the process of understanding a world through the inputs and outputs to that world. So this is where we start with the computational mindset. So when you how do you predict? You predict, it's a computational process. You use computation to look for patterns and enable you to make predictions about the future. When you want to influence or control, you do that through your selection of what outputs to send to the world. Now, when I say the world, and when I say you, well, I want to be clear, the world includes your body, because your body does things that are not completely under your control. And your body, it can fail you, and it can have needs that needs food and water, for example. And so your body really is part of your world. And you is maybe, your brain, or actually just a piece of your brain. So the world includes your body. The external world includes your body, and it also includes all the other people and all the other agents. They're all part of your world. Okay, so don't think that when I say you, I mean the limit of your organism. I mean the limit of your computational choices and power. Okay, so your goal, intelligence is all about having a goal, I guess. Yeah, here it's saying intelligence is the computational part of an agent's ability to predict and control its sensations or its input. But in particular, we're interested in one part of our input. And I think I even have that here on the next slide. The numerical signal called reward. Yeah, here's the reward. Is this little scalar, like the sensation includes like your whole visual image and your touch senses and your sound, and the action includes all the muscle twitches of all your body. But the reward, which is your goal, is a single number that you receive from the world, a specialized sensation, which your goal is to maximize it. And so this just is expressing the idea that you want to maximize something, maybe it's pleasure or comfort. And because this is the computational mindset, we're saying your goal is to influence this one input from the world. The reward, it's an input from the world. Your goal is not to get world peace. Your goal is not to raise a family. Your goal is not to become respected by your friends or your colleagues. Those couldn't possibly be your goal, because those things, how would you even know if those are true or not? Those are ideas that you have in your head that you've created. You have to have a goal that's come from outside. At least this is the computational mindset. The computational mindset it's all about signals passing back and forth between two objects. And those signals, I just mean information, just bits. There's nothing, we're not talking about physics, we're not talking about the world, except the world is the source of our bits, is our signals, of our input. And so the goal has to be, in computational mindset, goal has to be something about your input signals. You want to, I'm defining the goal is to predict and control your sensations, your role in the universe, or what it means to be an agent, to be a being, an intelligence, is that you can predict and control your signals. This is a mindset. And I'm trying to make this clear to you. I'm trying to make it seem plausible or not ridiculous, but I'm also just trying to be clear what it is. So this is the computational way of thinking, and then we can separately decide to what extent, to how useful it is. It's good to have many different ways of thinking about the world. You can think about the world in terms of physics. You can think about the world in terms of computation. You can think the world, and we're kind of used to this, more used to this than we used to be. Like you're familiar now with like video games where you might have a three-dimensional world and you go in there, maybe you shoot people or you jump around and you interact with a sort of a physical world, but it's not a real physical world. But it's a reliable pattern in your data, in your sensation, and in your choices that you make in that world. We're much more able, and now in the 21st century, to imagine that a whole world can come from an illusion or an appearance of irregularities between sensation and action. Okay. Now I just want to say the statement. We've said we have a goal. I've suggested the goal could be to maximize this signal from the world. And then I'll just say, if you're good at this, if you're good at maximizing the signal by using your computation and your actions, then I would say you're intelligent. And that's what I mean as intelligent. It means, the ability to achieve a goal in interacting with the world. And the goal might as well be maximizing a scalar signal. Another strong statement you can make from the computational mindset is that everything you know about the world is just a fact about your input and how it's affected by your output. It's a fact about your sensations and how it's affected by your actions. That's what the fact is. The fact is not that you're 5 feet 8 tall or that the Eiffel Tower is in Paris. The fact is, it may be a complicated statement about your input and its relationship to your action, but it's just everything you know is a statement about what would happen if you were to do certain things, or what might happen, what are the probabilities that it will happen. It could be a statistical fact about what you might see as a function of what you might do. Yeah, everything you know about the world, it's a fact about your input and how it's influenced by your output. This is the computational mindset. So again, to understand something, to understand history or physics or biology, to understand something is to be able to predict and control that thing. Okay, this is the computational mindset. Now you might think this is solipsism, and I only have data. I don't have reality. I think the reality of the world, the thing that underlies the patterns that you see in your data, that is just a theory. It's not real in the same sense that your data itself is real. The data is hard, and that's the truth. And you have to make up a story of the world that helps you predict it and control it. It's not solipsism, because solipsism says only you exist, which I'm kind of saying, but it means you're not constrained. We are constrained. We have to actually predict the world, and we have to actually control the world. So we are not you're not independent. We're not the only reality, the hard truth here we have to deal with. You have to find the right actions in order to get the world to give you reward. You might have to study LABMP and the singularity in order to get that may be the best way to getting the life you want with the food and the companionship you're looking for. So the world exists, and the world is a constraint on what you can do and how you can get reward. It's not solipsism, it's more like constructivism, where constructivism says, it's a philosophy that says you construct your model of the world by interacting with it and using your data. From your sense data, you construct a theory of the world. And so they have rallying cries like, the world is constructed. It's not, you construct your world. The world is not given to you. Yeah, you and your interface to the world exists, and you have to figure it out. That's what I decided just today actually to call it this, the computational mindset. I think it really summarizes a lot of the underlying view of agenthood and intelligence from the point of view of an AI researcher. And yeah, actually, I kind of would welcome your comments, whether this is consonant with the way you think or radically different, given that you're modern students in 2023. The world is data.
Yeah, I actually have a question. So I'm a psych major, and I noticed that in a lot of my courses, there's a lot of questions that arise whenever we look at papers as to how certain models can be applied to AI, and if we would see the same issues that we see in the human mind within AI, and how could we go about addressing those things. So I was wondering if you can kind of comment on that and how we can use the computational mindset within the field of psychology.
Yeah, I think they're very closely related. I actually have a degree in psychology, and I've published in psychology. I think of it as my secret weapon, actually, as an AI researcher, that I have this background in psychology. And so I know certain things, or certain things are sort of obvious to me, whereas it might not be apparent to a computer scientist. So what is the relationship? Well, we're both studying mind, right? We're studying intelligence, and one is treating it as a natural science. We have these things, people, animals, they have minds, they are intelligent in certain senses, they have goals, or they have patterns in their behavior that we call goal directedness and learning. Yeah, so that's a lot of commonality. Like intelligence, AI is trying to study intelligence without constrained by ideas of how natural intelligence works. But many researchers, like myself, think it's really valuable to take psychology not as a constraint, human minds, natural minds, not as a constraint, but as a source of ideas for how it might be done. Sort of like reverse engineering, and a source of inspiration. Yeah, I think it's a really good source of inspiration and ideas. And so it's always been this interaction between psychology and AI. This is cool. Actually, I have a slide somewhere in my slide deck. Let me see if I can find this. I'm thinking of this one. So there are actually many fields. You know, we've talked about AI and we talked about psychology. And then what they have in common is they deal with an interaction between an agent and an environment or world, and they have a goal. Like, you know, psychology, you know, we try to interpret animals as trying to maximize rewards in many cases, and so. But it's not just these two fields. There's also control theory. Control theory is all about how you interact with your plant or your robot arm or whatever it is. You interact with the world and you try to achieve some properties. Economics is full of this as well. And of course, neuroscience and things like operations research, they're all about these elements that have an agent interact with the world, it takes some actions, it receives some data, and it is trying to achieve some outcome. And now in psychology, we would say, well, actually, let's look inside the agent. Okay, inside the agent, we're going to have the agent, right? This is the agent. We're looking inside it, and I claim that all of these fields have common elements, and the common elements are these 4 boxes. They have some way of receiving the data, the observation, and converting it into a sense of where they are right now. And that's called perception or state. Right? You find the same ideas throughout psychology and control theory, operations research. You have a notion of state, and then the state is passed to something that produces the action. And that might be called as a reactive policy. It's or it might be called a control law in control theory. In psychology, what would we call it in psychology, Pram? This map from my perceived where I am to the action I take.
Would that be volition or
I'm thinking
I'm not quite sure.
They might just talk about a stimulus response, you know, association.
Okay.
Because the stimulus, maybe the stimulus is the observation, but more generally, it's some process of the observation to sense where we are, and then it maps to the response. Right, so it's like an SR, stimulus response mapping the policy. And so the value function, so reward is like pleasure. Okay, so animals, you know, they like pleasure, they like food. These things are primitive rewards, but they also have other things that will change the policy. So I don't know if you can see it. There's a green line called learning that swoops up from the value function and crosses the policy, and that crossing it means it doesn't determine the action directly, but it changes the mapping from the state to the action. Okay, so it's learning. The green line is learning. It's a change in the mapping from state to action. That would be learning. Okay, and so we know from psychology that animals will learn, sure, if you give them reward, but they can also learn without reward, because if you just like hint to them that reward is coming, they will learn when that hint arrives. Or if you give them something which causes them to feel fearful, that prediction of upcoming good or bad rewards, like reward could be negative, it would be bad. Okay, so the prediction can be just as good as it's just as effective in causing learning as the thing itself. And so now we should relate to this. This is like our own lives. Like, you know, maybe our things give us pain and pleasure are apparent enough, but we often will work and learn to do things that are not immediately painful or pleasurable. You know, like we might go jogging because it thinks we'll get more fit, even though it's kind of maybe not painful, but not pleasurable either to go jogging. Okay, and we might give up the chocolate cake, which would be very pleasurable because in the long run, it would be bad. It might not be as good. At least maybe the second piece of cake we might forego. Okay, and so this is what we mean by a value system. A value system is things that we do just because they're right, just because they're going to be right in the long run, even if they don't feel good in the short term. Yeah, and so in psychology, we have things called secondary reinforcers, and those are state components that cause learning even in the absence of reward. In control theory, we have what they call it, the LABMP functions, and we have value functions, explicit value functions in operations research that are predictions of future reward, and we have these things in AI as well. So this box, again, the notion of something that predicts reward, and then it participates in learning, is common in all these fields. And the fourth box is called the transition model because it describes the transitions that occur in states. Like if I behave this way and I'm in this state, then what state I will see in the future. So that I hold is what we, at least an important kind of world knowledge. World knowledge is how the world works as a function of how you act. So you could call this box, model of the world, a model of the transition structure of the world. So this is like knowledge. This is like transition probabilities and some control aspects of control theory and operations research. World model is sometimes called by neuroscience and psychology, philosophy, the model of the world. So what does the model of the world do? It knows stuff, and then you can consult it. You can say, well, what if I was to do this? What would happen, and would that be good? And in general, the model has to tell you what would happen if you were to do certain things. So this is like a sort of a background process. The perception has to operate every moment by moment. You have to say, where am I? Where am I? Where am I? Because you need to know where you are in order to choose your action. Your actions happen every moment. So perception, action, those happen every moment. Turns out the value function also has to be every moment, because you have to know every moment, are things going good? Are things going bad? Because that's what you need to know in order to change your behavior. Now the transition model, that is a slower thing. You could say, well, what if I did this? And what if I did that? You sort of, you probably shouldn't be dynamically interacting with the world when you're contemplating other places you might be. This is you have a chance to be more deliberative and think about possible world, possible states you might be in, possible actions you might do, what might happen. And that's knowledge. You say, well, what if I was in Paris and I went to the third arrondissement? Would I see the Eiffel Tower? And if it was and would it be lit up if it was Sunday night? I don't know. You could say possibilities and far away, and you better not be playing tennis when you're doing this, or driving fast, because your reaction time will go down. Okay, but all this thinking about other things you might do and their consequences is what we might call planning or reasoning or thought. And its consequence is, again, that you'll change the policy. There's another green line coming down labeled planning, coming down from the model, passing through the policy. It's changing the policy. So you think about things and you decide, oh yeah, when I get there, I'll do this. Change your policy. That's what we mean by planning. And this can back up, I suddenly realize that if I need to get to the university, then I might say, I know, well, I need to get up. I need to get my coat on, and maybe I need to call my friend before I leave. And you think about all the consequences of some way of behaving. Anyway, so these four boxes, the idea is that all these fields, many fields, deal with decision-making over time. They deal with intelligence. They deal with prediction and control. All these fields, it makes sense that they should have common ideas. And in particular, the idea of this interaction, the idea of these four components, we can find in many fields. And I think that's kind of exciting. And interdisciplinary fact that we can take advantage of, and we can understand things better if we understand how all these different fields are looking at different aspects of the same issues. And that was a long answer to your question, Prom. I loved the question. That's the problem.
That's fine.
Okay, good. We're now, I think we have used up the time. We should finish up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get the last word, Kim.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make a little plug for transient periods when it seems we're in a post scarcity world. We aren't really, but every now and then now, AI is creating surpluses of things we never thought we would have too much of, like writing better than our biological selves can ever write, or drawing better than our biological selves could ever draw, and so on. And as a consequence of that, during short periods, we seem to be in a post-scarcity world. But my idea is it lasts maybe 5 days at the most. And so, but it's fun to think about, when would that happen for real? And it is possible in the long run that we would be in a post-scarcity world, but I can't predict how long it might take to get to a stable post-scarcity world. Anyway, just something to think about as we get ready
Certainly,
for whatever.
the things that are scarce change.
Yes.
Yeah.
Certainly. And one thing about Patrick's teaching is he's always eager to surprise us, just in a sense as you are. So we really have no idea what he will bring us on Thursday.
It's true.
I'm sure it will be valuable and fun. So Rich, thank you very much for today, and yeah, we'll stay in touch. And
Nice to meet you all.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you. Okay, take care.
Thanks.
Bye, buddy.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.